Welcome on in to another action-packed live edition of the Between the Hash Marks podcast. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, and just about the best thing I can say about my friend, colleague, and mentor, Mike Tanier, is that, Mike, at least here today on this Wednesday afternoon, you're doing a little bit better than Brian Daboll is.
What happened to Brian Daboll?
Where were you? Why are we taking this on a Wednesday? You haven't heard? Have you been under a rock?
Last I heard, Jackson Dart got hit in the head by Soldier Field, and Brian Daboll left him in the game. But that's just Daboll being Daboll. There were no consequences for that, were there?
Well, there were, and there were some bigger consequences this time around, in addition to or other than a $100,000 fine from the NFL and a $200,000 fine to the Giants. Brian Daboll was fired on Monday, shortly before his day after press conference. We'll get into all of that. We'll get into some of the biggest storylines across the NFL. But if you stumbled onto the Two Deep Zone this morning, you'll know what I've known since about 10 o'clock on Saturday evening, my good buddy, my road drinking pal, spent a little bit more time on the road than he really anticipated this weekend, getting back into the Two Deep Zone headquarters. Mike, your wayward Greyhound bus travelogue is must-read, appointment reading. I'll forgive you for the walkthrough being removed from my Monday routine because my Wednesday morning routine was even more entertaining.
Well, thank you. Thanks to everyone for your patience on that. There was no way of getting a Monday walkthrough to you because I spent the entirety of Sunday from 8:05 a.m. Sunday. I believe that's 9:05 a.m. Eastern time. I'm not sure. 8:05 New Orleans time on Sunday until midnight and until actually 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock the following Monday. I was on Greyhound buses going from New Orleans to Atlanta, through Atlanta, to eventually Baltimore, trying to get to Philadelphia, because my American Airlines flight was canceled on Saturday after a sort of a sneak-away getaway with my wife to New Orleans, something we didn't tell that many people about because we wanted to get out quickly, come home quickly. The get out quickly worked.
Did not.
Nothing quickly about getting home, certainly.
We're going to get into all of this because I have questions. And I think that the viewers and the listeners and the readers have questions as well. Hang in with us because we're going to talk football as well. It was a big and impactful and newsy weekend that Mike was stuck on the road through the deepest of the South back into civilization on Sunday. We'll get into all of that. But if you do enjoy Mike Tanier's firebrand of storytelling, if you enjoy his ability to seamlessly blend pop culture references, superhero jokes with deep dive analytics and reporting and storytelling, subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. If you enjoy my reporting, there's a column up on Between the Hash Marks right now, inside why Brian Daboll was fired, where it went wrong over the last 2+ years. You can read about that there by subscribing to Between the Hash Marks on Substack. And of course, subscribe to the Between the Hash Marks podcast on Apple Podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Let us know what you like about the show, maybe what you don't like, but give us the 5 stars and we'll read it at the end of next week's podcast. And my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo 975, that is growing. But Mike, I want to dive right into this because when I started getting text messages from you on Saturday night and advising you to go to the airport bar during your delay and get a heavy pour of the most expensive top shelf scotch because it's now a business trip, I was looking out for your sanity. I think all that fell by the wayside. And I was concerned by the time I got to Sunday and found the excursion that you were about to go on.
Well, I think just about anybody listening has done air travel and realizes the misery of delays. Just about everybody deals with that. And we all know, there's coping strategies in the airport. You can go get a cocktail, etc. It was delay in the apocalyptic setting of the government shutdown with the air traffic controllers, shorthanded, etc. And there's this feeling just going across the airport that no one's ever leaving. And no one's ever getting in. Right. And you sometimes it's a storm. Like usually it would be like a blizzard or something like that. And you get the same thing. And that's what we were going through. And you get this frustration because it's like, if you had told me this flight was canceled at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was still, in Bourbon Street or wherever. All right, I'll get a cheap hotel. We'll check in with my wife. We'll get a cocktail. We'll put our feet up, and I'll figure out how to get the next flight out. This was not that. And it's hard to talk about the next flight out because a blizzard will clear.
Yes.
You don't know if a government shutdown, which turns out is clearing up, but you don't know if That's going to clear. So when you look at the next flight on your itinerary, and it says, well, you're going to go from New Orleans to Dallas Fort Worth, and from Dallas Fort Worth, we're going to send you to O'Hare, and from O'Hare, we're going to send you home, and it's going to be 13 hours total in the day. You're looking at like, I'm rolling the dice with every damn one of those flights that it's going to get delayed, canceled, or delayed past the the changeover, whatever. And you realize you can't do it. You can't do it unless you say, I've got 4 days to wait and unlimited funds, neither of which we had.
Every connection, you're rolling the dice. Every connection, you're worried that the plane isn't going to show up or the pilot's not going to show up. But this trip was just amazing to read. You survived vending machines that nobody could quite figure out how to work. You survived some off-bus fisticuffs. You survived some on-bus inabilities to sleep. You survived the FaceTime call from hell. I was worried on Sunday that we'd be doing the podcast with you FaceTiming from the back of the Greyhound bus. That's what I thought was coming. But it sounds like the dude having the affair with the woman somewhere in New York City couldn't take a hint, and everybody on the bus got to be treated to that. What was the low light that maybe didn't make the travel log? What was the one incident that made this the most memorable, biggest nightmare that you've ever seen on a Greyhound bus?
I think I make it pretty clear how badly I needed to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Number onesies and number twosies. Okay. And that every time along the way, it was like this special little side quest that was very difficult to complete. And I'm at least a man. I can pee standing up. My wife has to do these things backwards in high heels, etc. So, you can read about it, but like each bathroom was more disgusting than the last. They started out sort of at New Jersey Turnpike. Then they went to Veterans Stadium circa 1985, Eagles Giants game. Then they worked their way down to the trash compactor at Star Wars where there was somebody living in one of the bathrooms. And that's a tragedy of our society and everything. And I would like that to be solved. But in the short term, this person at least was assertive enough to kind of tell me not to poop. Like it was pretty much like making it clear that he didn't want me in there pooping. So, that was a thing. Then there were these situations. But the bigger thing about it is on a flight, even on a train, you don't ask questions like, well, what are we ever going to eat? When are we ever going to go to the bathroom? Because that can get provided for you. I went into this thinking, I don't know how we're going to eat or how we're going to go to the bathroom. And early in the trip, those questions were answered satisfactorily. Bus would stop at a truck stop. Okay. Like, oh, this is fine. So, like this is, because remember, if you're driving, what are you doing?
I made the drive. The last 2 summers, we took the kids to Walt Disney World and we drove it. The first time out of, trying to be cautious about not flying with little kids and COVID still sort of being a thing. The second time, because it was just cheaper and we had made the first time work, so do it again. But if you're driving, you find a Wawa, you find a gas station, you find a Buc-ee's. You didn't get to stop at Buc-ee's, but you find a Buc-ee's and you walk in and you realize that this is every Walmart mixed with every Wawa injected with human growth hormone, and this is what you're walking into. You're walking into the cleanest bathrooms you've ever seen that don't have a lock, by the way. I found that out the very difficult way.
Oh, no.
This past trip home. You're walking into a place where they'll be making chocolate-covered pralines over here, and 5 feet over to your right, they're smoking brisket, and 10 feet over here, you have homemade tortillas coming off the assembly line, and then you got a gift shop. I mean, Buc-ee's it's one of the, I don't even know how to adequately describe the experience and the cult following that Buc-ee's is and has. But I think that's one of my lone disappointments for you on this trip, that you went through all of this and you only got the intrigue of the billboard, not the spectacle of walking into one of these places.
Now, there are a couple of points about this. First of all, somebody on the message board of the article said that you can buy 5-pound vats of chicken fat at Buc-ee's. What a thing to just get at the roadside. I need 5 pounds of chicken fat right now. I'm going to be making a lot of matzo ball soup. I have no idea what you're going to do with 5 pounds of chicken fat. But secondly, you're telling me they advertise like the cleanest bathrooms in the South. Like that's, but they don't have locks on them?
either they don't have locks or the stall that I was misfortunate enough to, sprint on into, the lock was broken because there was someone who opened the door on me. I'm like, yo, dude, knock first. Give me a knock. But I can
Mhm.
attest to the bathrooms being clean. And I will say that I fought the urge to purchase even a Bucky's travel mug because my next door neighbor, it might as well be a Bucky's ambassador from all of his business travels. His kids all have Bucky's t-shirts. He has an entire collection of Bucky's hats. And, you go to the pool in the summertime, the community pool, he's wearing the Bucky's swim trunks. And I didn't want to step on the neighbor's brand of life. I didn't want to trample over his obsession with Bucky's and rolling with my own Bucky's hoodie to the bus stop next week. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I hear you. But so we don't get this experience. All I saw was billboards, and I drove past them, and it was like someone lined 30 Wawas up, which is great. So we stopped at a Love's, and like that was fine. So it's like you pull off. Okay, so you pull off at a Greyhound, and you go a mile in one direction into cornfields. Like here in Jersey, it'd be like you're going into like Hamilton, like past Hamilton or something, and you pull up at a Shell station, and the Shell station is the Greyhound stop. There's not like a little, like a little box there or a little station or anything. Like there's a sign and there's a girl sitting on her suitcase waiting for the bus in the middle of East Jesus Nowhere. She hops on like this is a normal thing for a young woman by herself in the middle of freaking the God's country to do. And then he's like, it was like an unscheduled stop. He's like, I'm going to take care of you guys because we were ahead of schedule, I think. And he drove over to the Love's, and the Love's is like a supermarket, and there was a little Arby's and a little pizza joint. And these guys all needed their cigarette breaks, and they were smoking like mad. But like, my wife and I come out of here, and it's like, okay, we got a little chicken tortilla wrap, we got like an iced tea, but Karen had to buy earbuds, things like that. Like it was very fully stocked. We sit down there on the bus, and it's like, okay, we're making good time. This isn't bad. Are they going to? So in my brain, I'm like, okay, we're doing this because there was a bus again. They left at 9:45 p.m. from Atlanta. And the Atlanta Greyhound station is the amok time. This is the sea of humanity. This is like zombie apocalypse stuff. Goes overnight through the Carolinas, and then you come out sort of in the early morning around Richmond, Virginia area. And I was like, I assumed that like at 6 something in the morning when we hit like the little town of Petersburg, Virginia, that the bus pulls into the truck stop. Everybody goes to Love's. Everybody potties. Everybody can get a Dunkin' and a wrapped up muffin or whatever, the most basic crap in the world, and we keep going.
You're thinking you're back to civilization. You're thinking that you're back into civilization with, continental breakfast, hot coffee, or cold brew, whatever you prefer. What I was blown away by in this travel log is that the bus stations got less functional the further you got out of the South. Once you got back above the Mason-Dixon line, it was like all bets are off. It's the wild, wild west, and you just not functioning. I was blown away by this.
No, like no bathroom, like in Baltimore, cordoned off bathroom, like a yellow caution tape. Like, dude, 3 bathrooms ago, there was a dude living in there. What does it take to have caution tape over this thing? Is there a dragon in there? What is possibly in there that you have to caution tape this thing? So there's porta potties out in front. That one did have vending machines, but the 2 before it had no vending machines. So you're bringing people up the coast and they can't poop and they can't eat, which of course, I guess, because you can't, but whatever. They can't smoke. You can't go get a vape or a cigarette or something like that. So you got like jonesing people. I would have been jonesing for caffeine if I didn't have like one emergency Dunkin' on me. No wonder they're fighting. No wonder they get off the bus and then people are like actually confused as to where they're supposed to go next. They're sleep deprived. They're food deprived. They might be caffeine or nicotine, forget anything stronger than that. Those basic chemicals might be having them jonesing a little bit. So what do you get? You wind up with people like running off the bus in Union Station, Washington, D.C., in like the parking lot behind Union Station just to go get a cigarette for a few minutes or try to find a bathroom, coming back, and the bus driver left without them.
Oh, my God.
Bus driver. Now, I didn't see this with my own eyes, but the rumor went up and down the bus, and obviously somebody was sitting next to somebody. Bus driver left without a couple people because they defied him by leaving. And he definitely told, and this woman didn't have a ticket, to be fair. He definitely told this woman, you cannot come on this bus under any circumstances. She was doing I run up the steps, I get a ticket, I come back, it's like, sorry, we're behind schedule. So like we were stranded in New Orleans, whatever. There were people stranded along this trip. in various places. And we were almost all stranded in Baltimore. And I don't know what actually happened after I left in Baltimore. I hope to God that 3 minutes after we drove away in an Uber, that like the bus driver pulled up, all aboard, let's go, and got these people up to Philly and New York. But I have no idea. There could have been people in Baltimore, from Atlanta, from New Orleans. Like, what do I do now? And you're not in the Inner Harbor. No.
You're bordering on the neighborhoods where The Wire was filmed.
You're in the Wire neighborhood. You're in the Wire neighborhoods. What you really are is you go down the I-95, and you roll off the off ramp, and you roll to the side, and there's always this shit to the side that you never think about. And it's like, oh, that's like a concrete company, and like packing sheds and things like that. That's where the Greyhounds are.
I got to find out though, because you've referenced the fights. And I did not expect there to be actual fights. So I need to know, one, were there fisticuffs? And two, how did these dudes carry the beef from one spot to the next and it not explode onto the bus and have dudes like pummel each other across, rows of seats on the bus? How do they have the restraint to not fight on the bus, but still be pissed off at each other enough to come to blows a second time if that's what happened?
Now, here's as much as I could figure out. It looked like this actually began in Atlanta. I didn't write about this. As we're boarding 9:40 in Atlanta, the bus driver has to run to the back of the bus. He's like talking to some people. He pulls a woman off for a second, moves a guy into another spot. So like they're on opposite ends of the bus, like we would have done with like seventh graders who were fighting, opposite ends of the bus. And it puts the girl, like rearranges the woman. I think this was the girl that the dudes were fighting over. That's a oversimplification of it. So that happens. So like all of the overnight passes, I think most of us were asleep. We come out in Charlotte, and we're not out of this bus a minute, where the one guy is charging the other guy, shouting, charging him. So I don't know. I mean, shoving was happening. So this was like charging the mound type of thing. There's definitely shoving and the threat to punch. There might have been a punch or two, but a couple of like the passers sort of get in between. There's, both Karen and I were like, yeah, that's a cafeteria fight. Like, oh, like all that kind of stuff. And some people trying to help, and some people like, fight. This is fun. Driver's got to break it up. Driver and a custodian. About 99% of 99% of this bullshit could be solved for the people who need to ride Greyhound this well. Folks are poor. Folks are struggling between things. If there was adequate people at the Greyhound station, if there was a security person, and if the custodial person, maybe you needed two of them to keep track of things in the bathroom or whatever, then everything's orderly and clean. You don't have this, and it's a manageable situation. So this breaks out. They try to talk him down. They put him back both on the bus, but one of the dudes clearly had some kind of mental health issue, some kind of anger management issue. He did not let go. And we weren't off the bus like a minute in Raleigh when he is in the face, shouting, threatening, finger pointing the other dude. And the other dude didn't look like somebody who was interested in fighting. He was, he was a younger dude. He looked like he had his act together a little bit more. It's like, no, man. The woman did not look like she was interested in being fighting about it. Like, you leave him alone. What's wrong with you? She wasn't egging anybody on. So, it's end of their rope. People might have mental health issues, might have substance issues, anger management issues. But that guy finally got kicked off in Raleigh, but I think he was getting off in Raleigh anyway. And then it got weirder.
How does it get weirder than that? Give me the weirdest thing that you experienced. What was the weirdest part of this trip for you? If it gets weirder than fights, I need to know the details.
I think the weirdest part of it is the guy having this 3-hour fight with the woman on the phone. That's part of it. Going to Washington, D.C. and seeing somebody just sort of left by the side of the road. That's a big part of it. And like you go into Petersburg, Virginia, and again, like we thought, you said continental breakfast and things like that. Yeah, continental breakfast at the Wawa. You're saying the Dunkin' breakfast
or a Dunkin' breakfast sandwich or a croissant, something.
Yeah, they're going to stop us at a Royal Farm. I'll be able to get that kind of thing, and it's going to feel like heaven, and it's manageable. So that goes away. You go into this town of Petersburg, and we pull up, and the bus station is an actual normal bus station like you would expect to find in a functional society, where it's a clean little brick building, where like a couple different buses come in and everything like that. Not allowed off the bus. Not allowed off the bus. What time is it in the morning? Is it like 7 a.m.? Like people have been on this bus overnight. It is 7 a.m. Any logical thing in the world is that you just let's get these guys out for 10 minutes. We were behind schedule. We're behind schedule to go to Baltimore where there's no driver. There's no driver in Baltimore waiting for us. And whatever it was, I think it wasn't 7. It was at a point where we were going to cruise past rush hour. Like rush hour is going to be over in DC. So maybe we're talking about 8:15 at that point. Like by the time you hit DC, open or closed, you're not going to hit rush hour. No. And what it was this very old school driver who was fed up with the dude on the phone. I think he showed up for the second fight, so he was fed up with us.
He was done.
He was done. Like, F you, you're not getting off this bus. That was his attitude. So it's like, so now we're like prisoners get a bathroom break, not to be over dramatic. Prisoners get a bathroom break. We don't get a bathroom break at that point. I'll throw one other thing at you, something I didn't mention. Okay. What about brushing your teeth?
Oh, I'm assuming the running water is minimum on the back of the bus, right? The bathroom in the back of the bus, if it even has any water left. Best I would think is maybe when I'm at Love's, I get a little thing of mouthwash and I swig that around and spit it out when other people were, cranking out the cigarette smoke breaks. I'd be doing mouthwash. I don't know. What was your solution?
Well, I've lived a varied life. So the first thing I did, I didn't have my travel size was used up in New Orleans, was buy a toothpaste, and I had my toothbrush, and then my wife had her toothbrush. We shared a toothbrush. We've been married 30 years. Okay. And I got a little deodorant that smelled like Hawaiian tropic pineapple. It smelled like a pina colada, but that's what they had. And every time I saw that there was a functioning bathroom, I had toothpaste and toothbrush in my pocket right while I was in that bathroom. I brushed, knowing I didn't know if I was going to get the opportunity next time. I would hand the kit off to my wife if she chose to do it. So we had that because I learned some lessons along the way on the road.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody else doing that on the bus. So you in addition to everything else, if you're trying to maintain your dignity and you haven't pooped, you haven't eaten, and everything like that, you haven't brushed your teeth either. And then you'd be like, okay, I saw people getting off the bus and they all look like scummy, nasty, people. Look what just happened to them. You should have seen me. You should have seen me.
It's so shocked you came here showered and shaved. I'm not shocked because you deserve to take a shower the minute you walk in the door. But I was expecting, bus creature Tanier to be, sitting in the chair in the office today. Thankfully that we're far enough out of this that you're able to get to that. But man, my big takeaways here are that you get a real view of what life is like across this country by taking the bus. And
yeah.
Greyhound might be a Ponzi scheme. If you can't have adequate staffing for enough bus drivers to show up for all of the buses that you need, if you can't have enough bathroom attendants in your bus stops for the people that you're transporting to just use the bathroom and brush their teeth, if there might be a security guard on site, maybe not, you're playing armed robbery roulette with your paying customers, it feels a little Ponzi scheme-ish to me.
It's underfunded, and it's kind of like when you make it bad, it makes things worse.
Yes.
So it's like we have to keep Greyhound super crappy level cheap because only poor people ride it. Well, only poor people ride it because it's this awful situation that you've created. Therefore, you don't get the funding that you would get if forget government funding or something like that. Heaven forbid. But if more people use this service, then you would have the money to hire more attendants. But since you didn't hire the attendants, nobody's going to use the service. So it's kind of like whatever, it's a snowball effect to that degree. But no, it's not a functional system. It's not a functional system if the only people who would ever take this are people who just completely run out of options or just absolutely at the end of their rope broke, which again, there's some college students on there. There were some other folks. There are clearly some other travelers who were stranded who are trying to do this. But whether it's a Ponzi scheme or not, it should be better. And it would be and security guards and a person standing at the desk to answer questions, and vending machines that were repaired, and bathrooms that had been cleaned regularly. That's it. Then it's doable. We all know it's no frills. We all know it's going to be cheap and catch it, catch can. It's going to be slow. You're going to be on the roads. If you do those things, somebody like me might say, I could use this again. Like somewhere along the way, I would be tempted to use this again if it wasn't so. The longer you were on this, the more you found out how many fucked up things, like dangerously and just dignity robbingly fucked up things were going on it.
Completely inadequate. It just seems like a completely inadequate experience. And for you, it was a last resort, get out of Dodge situation. For people in that part of the country, it's a means of transportation if you can't afford air travel. It's a disgrace that it's at this level. It really is. And I guess my question for you personally is, if you could go back and you're sitting there texting me on Saturday night, would you have taken the flight to Dallas Fort Worth, or would you have done this again and lived through it again?
What I would do is pull out all the stops, turn to Karen and say, you're going to burn a week of sick days. So you're tenured faculty right now. It's we're older folks. It's like they can't fire you, whatever. We're going to call my youngest son and say, Mike, you got to miss a couple of days of school. Try and get a remote or whatever. You need to stay home with the dog. And I'm going to go to Hertz Rent a Car. I'm going to one-way rent a car. I didn't have my driving glasses. That was one of the things. If I had to do it, I'm never going anywhere without my driving glasses again. But with these, I can drive when it's clear. And I'm going to say, hon, we're going to, whatever that Hertz Rent a Car takes, we're going to slowly take turns driving. Probably take us 3 days because we're old. I'm not going 100%. And we're just going to drive home, and we're going to stop at rest stops and Royal Farms and Buc-ee's and Wawa's, and then we'll hit the Quality Inn at night, and we'll get home like that. We didn't do that because my driving glasses weren't available. I was worried about the weather. I was worried about unfamiliar roads, and we were both worried about getting home in time so that she didn't miss any more school than she had to, and that we didn't have to pull Mike out of his classes in college. He had Monday off from classes. Like he should have just stayed home. He could have just, there's things he could he could have. No, I'm thinking about this now. He could have Ubered to school on Tuesday morning and Ubered home, and that's expensive, but it's a half-hour ride. It's not crazy, and he could have kept taking care of it.
It's not from Baltimore to Jersey, right?
No, I wound up taking a Lyft, and I was lucky. This guy had all his life had been a long-haul trucker. And he had stepped away from long-haul trucking and was doing a couple things. It's like, well, I can lift a couple of days a week because I don't care where I drive because I'm a long-haul trucker. I'm driving a Nissan. That's easy. So he saw Baltimore to Mount Ephraim, New Jersey, and was like, yeah, sure.
Why not?
That's not an easy Lyft driver to take. Now, if that had failed, I probably would have lifted to the Amtrak station and come back up. And now let me say this, by the way. I didn't take Amtrak because Amtrak is completely FUBAR because their schedules are insane. There's not enough trains.
Yeah.
So you might look at this and say, look, we shouldn't be as a government investing in bus travel. That's nuts. Our train travel should work. That should work.
We should high-speed rail. There should be high-speed rail lines across the country to populous areas so that if you were in Atlanta, hop a high-speed rail to New York or Philadelphia or D.C. and figure it out from there. But the fact that the train system is so inadequate across this country, east to west, north to south, other than the I-95 corridor, it's a disgrace. And it's I don't even know where you point the blame for the reason why, but for the wealthiest country on the planet, supposedly, figure it out. Open up the options for people.
Yeah, no one gives a shit. That's the reason why no one gives a shit. Everybody wants to say, no, I'm not just get a bigger car or whatever. And even if you don't want high-speed rail, I know that's a big investment. Okay, there should be 5 trains from New Orleans to Atlanta every day.
Every day, yep.
There's 1. 5 trains from New Orleans to Atlanta. These are major cities in the U.S. Connect them like that. Because if there's 5 trains from New York to Atlanta, then there's going to be 5 trains from Atlanta going up to D.C. And then you can take
D.C., New York, Boston. And you can hook up with the Amtrak corridor from there, and you make the normal stops. It should be easy to fix, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened.
Right. Absolutely. I've got to blow my nose. I'm going to step away from the thing here.
Yes,
Uh,
you do
and,
that.
and,
I'm
and
going to read through some of these comments here. Michael Allen Brewer says, yes, more than one freaking train. James Schwartz checks in. NIMBY is the problem with that. It's not a functional experience. Speaking of my fantasy football team, a great line there, Michael Allen Brewer. And I will say, while you're blowing your nose out, I also want to give a thanks to Joe Stazak, de facto editor
yeah.
of Between the Hash Marks 4 Downs columns on Monday. He joined me for the nightcap recap on Sunday night. I'll have to get you the clip. We did have a little fun with this. We poured one out for you. We wished you well on your journey, because while I was watching games on Sunday, I kept checking the Blue Sky feed, and the post that you put out from your travels was great comedic relief.
Thanks.
Looking at Biloxi, Mississippi, and the fact that you were nowhere near Veets in Mobile when you had to stop at Mobile. It just seemed like it was one of the highlights of the weekend for me, and I'm sure other fans checking in and subscribers to the Two Deep Zone probably were tracking your progress. We're going to track Santa on the NORAD in a few weeks here.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to everyone. There were folks on the DVO8 Discord. There were folks on Blue Sky, a lot of places who were sort of following and wishing me luck and bringing a little bit of energy with me. Now, I was joking at the beginning. I knew Brian Daboll had gotten fired. Okay. But here's the thing. I found that out yesterday. You told me that something happened at the press conference? Or am I?
Yeah, well, it's sort of. So what happened was on Sunday, the Giants blew another fourth quarter lead, right? That's become a hallmark of the 2025 Giants. And Jackson Dart gets evaluated for a concussion. For whatever reason, the league doesn't sit him down in that moment. Right. Brian Daboll allows him to go back in. Eventually, he gets put into the concussion protocol, and that's it. They go to Russell Wilson. And after the game, see, this was what became the fireable offense for me for Brian Daboll. It's not, again, all of this is on top of stacking the Jackson Dart injuries. That's 4 concussion evaluations since he started this year. It's the unnecessary hits. It's not getting him to slide. It's not getting him to protect himself. But you and I have covered these press conferences for head coaches long enough that when he's asked about the injury, and Brian Daboll's answer is kind of to shrug his shoulders and go, it's a shame that he got hurt. That tells me that either Joe Shane or John Mara intercepted him at the coach's elevator somewhere between the locker room and the podium and said, "You're done." Right? I mean, if you can't even feign the interest in your franchise quarterback suffering a concussion, that you say it's a shame he got hurt. I don't know how you can come back from that. I don't know how you think that you're going to be allowed to come back from saying something like that.
That's Daboll. I mean, have you gotten that impression that's kind of who he is?
Yeah, from the beginning. And you know, I wrote about this at Between the Hash Marks. It's up on the site. You think about everything that's gone wrong. You know, there was nearly come to blows with Wink Martindale before Martindale resigned late last season. There was the incident where he flipped the tablet at Daniel Jones on the sideline, kind of the anger seeping through there. And I spoke to a source, an agent who has a couple clients on the Giants roster, who told me, quote, it got really bad, that everything seemed personal with Brian Daboll. And when you talk about how this ended, it's, yes, they found the franchise quarterback. That's great. He found the franchise quarterback. That's kind of his parting gift to the organization. But the culture just came off the rails. And I think that whoever the next head coach is, it's all about developing Jackson Dart. Nothing else matters. You need a quarterback whisperer who can get the most out of Dart, maximize his upside, and simultaneously overcome the systemic issues of that organization, where Joe Shane, who hired Brian Daboll, who let Xavier McKinney, let Julian Love, let Saquon Barkley all walk out the building, now gets to oversee the coaching search. Mike, in what universe does that make sense for an organization to turn the page and turn the corner?
You know how this goes, is that Shane hires in a guy, one of his guys, and then he gets fired, and somewhere along the way, sadly, we don't want this to happen, but Dart turns out to be damaged goods somehow. We don't know how that happened. And then you're going to have one of these rotations where the coach, the general manager, and quarterback are all on 3 different developmental timetables. That's exactly how you create this thing where it's like, well, the new coach wants to get his guy at quarterback, while the GM wants to fire his coach, while the coach wants GM powers, and the quarterback just wants his next contract or whatever. That's how you get these horrible shell game situations. But with Daboll, it was all from very early on. It was clear he had anger management issues behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. A little bit of everything's about me personality. That was with Wink. That was with some of the other assistants. I think there was some of that going on with Kafka. Like, this is about me. But you've got a guy who's coaching for his future, who has his franchise quarterback, and has been warned by Mara publicly and fined by the NFL. Do not hurt the franchise quarterback. That's basically what it boils down to. When you look, don't go poking your head into that, into the door to see how he's doing. Do not endanger the franchise quarterback. And he's out there in the fourth quarter of this game when it's falling apart. And he's like, oh, he's crumpled up on the field. Well, the league didn't say anything. I'm going to put it back out there. As a human, that's horrible. As a strategist fighting for your job, you pull him away on the pillow, you put Russell Wilson out there, and you go out in that press conference and you say, look, Jackson Dart and the future of the organization came first. Russell Wilson's a professional. He's been in those situations before. We count on him. You go out there with that messaging because it not only possibly saves you your job, but it might get you the next one. Because you don't come across as this angry-ass gerbil who's just going to get people around you injured, fired, whatever, to get what you want. This is a guy who should be looking around and saying, I could be in Baton Rouge in a couple months. Yeah. Right?
Right. He could be the head coach at LSU, and it could be a posh job for him. But here's the thing, and I talked about this on Sunday night. It was clear from the moment that they played Jackson Dart, even though Dart gave them the better chance to win, and I think that it was time to play him, and any snap taken by Russell Wilson was one snap too many, in my opinion, based on what we saw in the summer. But when you're poking your head into the blue medical tent, when you continue to draw up design quarterback runs late in games that aren't competitive, when you continue to not drill into his head, slide, step out of bounds, throw it away, live to play another day, when you're not the adult in the room, and you are treating the franchise quarterback not as the cornerstone of the franchise's next decade, but as your personal job security ticket, that's the fireable offense. That's when you can't go any further. And, we've given John Mara and the Giants a lot of criticism for a lot of reasons, and a lot of it is deserved. And I do think that they botched this situation because it needed to be a full house cleaning. It needed to be bringing in a general manager who valued Jackson Dart, who could build his roster around Jackson Dart, with a head coach who buys into Jackson Dart. Because if you and I are seeing it, coaches employed and unemployed are seeing Jackson Dart's upside. But remember, it was Brian Daboll who targeted Jackson Dart. It was not Joe Shane, right? Jackson Dart was Brian Daboll's guy. So now you have a general manager who might be in like, not in love, picking a head coach who knows how they all feel about Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart's all that matters. They need to get this hire right for the quarterback and also for changing the image, the perception, and the culture from the ground up of that franchise.
Now, again, I'm not as high on Dart as others seem to be out there in the world. He's got potential. He has upside, certainly. It's two things I noticed over the last couple of games, certainly, is one, obviously, he runs headfirst into tacklers. And B, he doesn't see pass rushers coming outside of a box here. Guys coming from the outside, guys who got behind him, they wallop him. He's got no clock or no management of what's going on out there, so he takes those hits. Two very, very big problems that have to be solved. And he's a gung-ho individual, so you really have to train out of him, order out of him. I did see him slide a couple times when I watched the tape, so it's like, okay, he's getting better at sliding. But as a coach, it's like, if that's not working, then you have to say, we're not doing any designed runs for this kid. If it's a tie game, sure, but not, it's 31-10 or whatever the Eagles game was. Go crash into the line, run a couple of zone reads into the line. You have to stop doing that. Daboll didn't. Interestingly, Kafka promoted Winston.
Yep.
Do you get any sense that Winston was third string because Daboll wanted him to be third string, or what was the deal there?
That wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if maybe there was some loyalty to Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah.
They thought that the way they handled it early in the year, you didn't want to embarrass him and make him the number 3 quarterback.
Hmm.
But I do think that I give the Giants a little bit of credit here for handling the firing now. It had to happen, and if you
Hmm.
waited until the season's end, you wouldn't have had the chance to evaluate Mike Kafka for 7 or 8 games down the stretch. And
Right.
Jackson Dart has to get healthy. It'll be a conversation whether or not to play him based on where the Giants are in the standings at that point. But you get to at least evaluate Mike Kafka as a play caller, if nothing else,
Yeah.
rather than going into a hiring cycle where either way, Kafka is going to be one of the most sought after assistants this hiring cycle. He's going to get a
Yeah.
job somewhere, whether it's Tennessee to work with Cam Ward, whether it's eventually Jonathan Gannon getting fired and he winds up in Arizona or he winds up in New York. They get to evaluate him now. I think
Hmm.
that that's where they got this right, rather than waiting till the end of the year.
Right. And it's interesting with Kafka because he would be getting like coordinator of interviews and things like that, but they would shut them down because they promoted him to like assistant head coach or whatever. But then they will take away his play calling duties or give her super secret play calling duties or whatever, where you found out after the game based on whether they won or lost who called the plays. And mysteriously, if they won, Daboll called the plays. It was always this weird thing going on. Now, Kafka originally was an Andy Reid guy. Okay. And he's been there for the parts where the offense was functional. So I am like a lot of times when they like with Mike McCoy in Tennessee, it's like, I don't give a crap about Mike McCoy in Tennessee. With Kafka, I have a funny feeling he was trying to get things done behind the scenes, and he was getting kneecapped by the boss. And I'm curious, now that he's not getting kneecapped by the boss, if he can do something with this. Granted, they don't have neighbors, they don't have Scatterboo, whatever. If he can kind of pull something together to show, yes, as a play caller, I can manufacture a couple of wins with Jamaboo and Dart when he comes back. And yeah, give me a head coaching job or give me a coordinator job that's fast tracking me, that doesn't have me blocked by a nitwit. Give me
Right,
one of
blocked
those.
by an offensive-minded, control-obsessed head coach,
Yes. Yeah.
narrative-obsessed, all of those things.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fascinating to watch. 2 names, if it's not Mike Kafka, that I think might be worth watching. Matt
Hmm.
Nagy in Kansas City. I think that he's
Okay.
rehabbed the image from the failures with the Chicago Bears. You're back in the Andy Reid coaching tree. You've worked with Patrick Mahomes, and I would keep an eye on a guy like Greg Roman, who has
Yeah.
done a really nice job with the Chargers, despite losing both offensive tackles, getting the most out of Justin Herbert and that offense in a really tough situation with the Chargers. And he has the experience working with Lamar Jackson in that offense. You're going to have Cam Scottaboo back at some time next season. You're going to get some weapons back. I think you need to have a coach with an offensive mindset, with a track record of at least working with, if not developing, elite quarterbacks.
Now, this was helpful because, again, I didn't know. Again, I knew Daboll was fired. I didn't know about the way he talked at the press conference and some of the things behind it here. I am still very far behind. I was able to watch like 2 games yesterday and 3 games today to catch up. So you're going to catch me up.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things you said, I'll catch you up on the Daboll situation. Catch me up. What else did I miss on Sunday?
Well, it wasn't Sunday, but you were probably sleeping yesterday, because I made the drive back from Walt Disney World in Florida in like
Yeah.
13 hours before, and that day after, you're shot. You're a punch
Mhm.
fighter. You want to lay around. Your mind isn't in it.
Right.
Yesterday evening, Jaire Alexander retired.
Oh,
He's coming back. They just traded for him at the trade. I had at the trade deadline with the Baltimore Ravens. Alexander
mhm.
retires. What do you make of Jaire Alexander retiring, stepping away from the team, whatever the situation winds up being? In addition to AJ Brown's comments, apparently this morning, when he was
Okay.
asked on sports radio if everything is okay, and he says, everything with my family is okay, but if you're watching, you know that it's not okay. It's a shit show. Um, what do you make of what's happening with this Eagles team, who survived a really brutal test against a playoff team at Lambeau on Monday night? What do you make of this?
I'm so done with AJ Brown. I'm so done with AJ Brown. I'm so done with this freaking sad dark wave emo boy nonsense. Okay. Get out there and play the game. He almost had the game icing touchdown. Is that it? Is that what you needed to go up there and jump over Valentine on 4th and 8 and get the touch? Would that have made it better? Is that what we're talking about with AJ Brown? I have no idea. I'm done with it. I don't. He needs whatever.
Yeah,
Alexander,
it's almost reaching TO sit-ups and push-ups in the driveway level.
it feels like we're almost there. The big difference being that, like, that was in the off season, and that level of dysfunctionality had kind of permeated the whole team at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas Brown just seems to be Brown. I don't get any impression that, like, AJ Smith and Dallas Goedert and Hurts are like, oh my God, now we all hate each other. I feel like AJ Brown is just miserable and doesn't like Hurts, and that's it. But I don't. What do you do? Trade deadline's come and gone. A team is 7-2. You can win another Super Bowl ring. Is that not enough for you? Find your motivation at this point. This is, you're calling it a shit show. The Giants are a shit show.
Go win a ring. Go win a ring. And then on the flight back with the Lombardi trophy, you walk up to Howie Roseman and you just say, trade my ass, right?
Trade my ass.
You request a trade after you win that second Super Bowl trophy. You look across the league, there's going to be a market for A.J. Brown. Go catch passes from Caleb Williams in Chicago. Go down to Miami and line up opposite Jalen Waddle because they're done with Tyreek Hill. Get traded to a franchise on the come up if this is not the spot, not the situation.
Right, I'm sure it'll be much better with Caleb Williams. That sounds like a much better situation. Where's the grass greener? Where's the grass greener, AJ Brown? Show me where the grass is greener right now. Okay, you want to go play in Seattle? Like just the flavor of the month. Oh, Seattle's good, so send me to Seattle. A month ago, you wouldn't have given a crap about Seattle.
Yeah,
they got the same record as the Eagles. Where do you want to go? What's it going to take to make you happy? I sound like the guy on the bus yesterday. What's it going to take to make you happy, AJ? All right, just don't.
I'm convinced that woman was having an affair. When I read the story, I'm convinced
they weren't married. You think
he was the other guy? I'm saying he was on the bus as the other guy, and she couldn't pull the ripcord. That's my theory of your bus FaceTime call from hell.
I believe it because you go down to New Orleans without your spouse, not you, not me, but in general, an individual do that, and would wind up having like a 1 or 2 night stand along with that. That's always within the realm of possibility, higher in New Orleans than most places. Either way, I don't want to go into that. AJ Brown, I'm done. I don't get it. I don't understand. Alexander, I feel like he was ready to retire in 2021, but the paychecks were coming.
Yeah.
And he's been in that place. And so he's like, well, I want to get mentally right, physically right. So I respect the idea. You want to get mentally right. Good. Walk away from the game. Been nice to do that before the trade. Would have been nice to do that before the Ravens trade with the Packers. You could have retired as a Packer. Okay. At some point along the way, I understand people will kid themselves with that money coming in or say, let me give this another chance. He is really pretty clear. When I had to write a thing on the Packers in the offseason, I went back 2 years, like the quotes and the things LaFleur would say, Gutekunst would say, and Alexander would say. He's been done for a while. And so now at least you don't have to worry if he's coming back next week. He's not.
Right. And you look at what the Eagles did. They bring in Michael Carter Jr. at the trade deadline. Adoree Jackson, I thought, played pretty well against the Packers on Monday night. But I'm not sure when you watch that game, how much credit do you give the Eagles defensive backs and the swarming pass rush with Jalix Hunt just living in the backfield, living in Jordan Love's lap, Jalen Phillips making a couple of really big timely plays in big spots? How much credit do you give the Eagles defense playing above their heads in that game? And how much is it just that the Packers receiving core without Tucker Kraft is just a bunch of guys? Because you look at the numbers, Christian Watson, 2 catches on 4 targets, 45 yards. Dontavian Wicks, 4 catches, 8 targets, 38 yards. Josh Jacobs, 5 catches, 33 yards out of the backfield. Bo Melton, 2 catches for 35 yards. Luke Musgrave, all 3 of his targets for 23 yards. But it didn't look for a moment, let alone a stretch of a series or a drive, that Jordan Love trusted these wide receivers, that Matt LaFleur knew how to call a game plan without Tucker Kraft in the lineup. So how much of it is it a testament to Vic Fangio and the Eagles dialing up the pressure that created this? And how worried should we really be about this Packers offense that looks like, just watching it, it feels like they might be done as a contender without Tucker Kraft this year?
Well, okay. So they're without Tucker Kraft. They were without Matthew Golden. He was hurt.
Yeah.
Dowds got hurt early in the game. They've been without Jaden Reed for weeks. So you're mentioning guys like Bo Melton, who had been converted to cornerback, and they had to convert him back. You you mentioned he was trying to catch fourth and 9 passes.
Yeah.
You mentioned Droptavian Wicks, and Droptavian is called Droptavian. He was named by his mommy Droptavian Wicks because he Droptavians the ball all the time. And they're trying to rely on this guy who they thought was going to be wide receiver 6. They put Savion the Frog Williams out there, and they keep trying to make him do things. He's a kick returner. He's Cordarrelle Patterson light, and so you shouldn't really do much with him except let him return. It's like, well, we were in a position to make a play. So the Packers offense, I don't know what you would have called against the Eagles defense in that point that would have worked, except maybe just trying to force feed Josh Jacobs the handoff 6 million times.
That's what I would have done. Right. I would have doubled and tripled down to Josh Jacobs and tried to move the ball down the field that way. But credit to the Packers defense, they held Saquon Barkley to 60 yards. But look, and they held an Eagles offense that's pretty prolific to 10 points. The Packers defense checked a box, but it just seems like that offense. It seems like that offense, just without the most explosive tight end after the catch in the league, it just doesn't have an identity and doesn't have the weapons or the playmakers that it lowers their ceiling so much. I wonder, in a loaded division, if they aren't suddenly third or fourth in that group.
I mean, they're second in that group in that division. I'm not putting them below the Bears for goodness sake.
Bears have won 5 of 6. Bears have won 5 of 6. They've Caleb Williams has 4 fourth-quarter comebacks.
Bears, they bought a bunch of fourth-quarter cutbacks against Giantses.
True.
A bunch of fourth-quarter comebacks against Giantses. That's speaking to us. Vikings are coming off a loss. Packers are definitely below the Lions. And we can make a little too much because, so it was a 10-7 game between two teams with excellent defenses on a cold night on a choppy field. So it's like, it was a 10-7 game. Eagles did not look great on offense. Packers looked worse on offense. Neither of them look like Super Bowl teams. The only team right now that looks like Super Bowl teams in the NFC are the Seahawks and the Rams, who are facing each other this week. Right. I
think you left one out. I think you left out a team. The one I want to touch on next is the Detroit Lions. They go down to the nation's capital. You guys just missed each other on your Greyhound trip up. They go out there watching. They pulverized the shell of the Commanders, right? It was a revenge situation against a shell of the Commanders, right?
The Tennessee Titans Alumni Association. I haven't watched the game yet. In fairness, this is one I have not watched, but I looked at stats and I see that Marcus Mariota is throwing to Treylon Burks. I don't care what the final score was. It could have been 110, and it's like, whatever. Okay, but obviously the Lions played well. I will check the game out. We are 2 weeks removed from getting beaten by the Vikings.
Yeah. And I guess that's my big question here was that just them taking out the revenge from the playoff loss on Marcus Mariota and the rest of the Commanders' backups? Or is there more to this thing here? Because you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 touchdowns, 41 touchdowns before the age of 24, 5th player to ever do that. Jamison Williams, 6 catches on 7 targets, 119 yards and a score. I just watched them, and I'm not sure around the league if there's a more formidable collection of talent than Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, and Sam Laporta. And they're kind of like Seattle, other than that slip up against the Vikings. They're just browbeating teams every week.
I mean, I didn't watch the game. I would say the Vikings have a bit more formidable collection of talent. I'd say the Eagles do. The Commanders fired the coordinator, right?
They did. They benched him. They pulled the old Sean Desai benched in favor of Matt Patricia. Yes.
What?
Do you remember last year, 2 years ago, when Nick Sirianni benched the coordinator in favor of Matt Patricia? That's what happened here. Yes.
It's not Matt Patricia again, is it?
No, it's not. Matt Patricia's not there. He's at Ohio State. He's going to go win a national championship.
That's right. I knew that. I'm good. I'm sick of it, AJ. I'm sick of it. Okay. What else do you have to tell me here?
Drake May, Trevion Henderson flew down to Tampa Bay and got some validation and a big win over the
Yeah.
Buccaneers. Is this a team that's coming together around a accomplished veteran head coach, or is it one that's just relying on explosiveness? Trevion Henderson, 69-yard touchdown run, 54-yard touchdown run. Matt Collins, 54-yard catch, in addition to being the kind of blocker that sprung the running game. Kyle Williams, remember when we were sitting in the bleacher and I was talking my ear off about Kyle Williams and how impressed I was with
Yes.
him getting open? Kyle
Yeah.
Williams finally did something, caught a 72-yard touchdown on Sunday. Stephon Diggs had a 19-yard catch, big part of the offense there. I know the Commanders aren't exactly your squad. Patriots aren't exactly your squad. What do you make of New England?
One thing is, but I see there might be some chatter down there. You can take a look at that in the comments. But obviously, this was validation. It's a game I haven't watched yet, but it's like, okay, you beat the Buccaneers. You beat the Buccaneers. I can't go on with my little, you beat was the Browns. You can't do that thing. Aaron Schatz told me that with the post-game winning expectancy and all, you mentioned the explosive plays, that other than the explosive plays, the Patriots didn't play well at all, and the Buccaneers outplayed them. Now, I know that's a little bit like saying, other than everything that was good, you weren't good. Like, if we take away all the good, everybody's bad. But like from a statistical standpoint, DVOA post-game win expectancy, it was a couple of big plays and then sort of holding on for dear life against the Buccaneers.
Defense made a couple really big stops. Christian Gonzalez had a couple big plays on third down. That was one of the games that I really focused on. And there were some long drives. I mean, they had the 14-play touchdown drive at the end of the half. They had a couple of 7-play drives, a couple of 8-play drives. But I thought that the defense stepped up and did its job late in the game.
Okay.
And that's kind of what you want to see. It's yes, the explosive plays, those can be hit or miss on a weekly basis, but if your defense travels, I think that's how you can become dangerous late in the year.
And we're reaching the point with the Patriots now. They've got that as a quality win. They've got the Bills as a quality win. And they are storming to a easy and possibly now very likely a division title because the Bills keep tripping over themselves. I haven't gotten to that one yet.
Yeah, they went down and got blown out by the Dolphins in Miami's building. And the last one that I had on my list here is, you might be right. I might have been dead wrong. I might need to go and get the shovel out of the backyard and dig up the grave that I planted the Ravens in, because I don't think Baltimore's dead. And based on what we saw Sunday night with Aaron Rodgers aging 3 years in the span of 7 days, it feels like the Steelers are in very real trouble. It feels like we're watching the wheels fall off for Aaron Rodgers the way they did for Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh last year. And bully ball is just back for the Ravens. They created a bunch of turnovers. They only sacked J.J. McCarthy once, but they hit him 5 times. They goaded him into some big mistakes on bad reads in the secondary that they took advantage of.
Okay.
And Lamar Jackson did his thing. You might be right about the Ravens.
And the thing is, I might be right. What I was doing was basing it off of the DVOA, the projections, Aaron Schatz, and things like that. It's hard for us when we watch the games to keep schedule strength and future schedule strength straight in our heads. Yeah. So that's why these statistics exist that like Aaron puts out, where it's like this team moving forward has the second easiest schedule, and this team has the third hardest schedule. And even though the team lost,
it's strength of schedule season. That's one of the things that in the column, I make a point now this time of year. Here's the best remaining. Here's the strength of schedule. Here's where they rank. Yep. Here's the winning percentage. Here's who they have left. And you look at where the Patriots are. It's a really navigable road from here on out.
Right. The Patriots have had an easier one. It's actually harder for the Patriots than normal. But you look at the Ravens, right now it's Browns, Jets, Bengals coming up. Browns, Jets, Bengals.
Yeah.
Okay. And and they're playing so well. And the other thing is, when you do previous strength of schedule, the Ravens are 1-5. And of course, there were injuries. They lost to the Bills, Lions, Chiefs, Texans, and Rams. They were going out there injured, severely injured against some of the best teams in the NFL, plus teams like the Texans who have like this supercharged one element of their thing, their defense, that can like mess you up if you're coming in there a little bit weak. So, you look at all that, and you and I can look at 1-5, 1-5 is done. The statistics were saying 1-5 isn't done. They have an easy stretch. They're going to get healthier. The Steelers are very wobbly. And now we're seeing this coming into fruition. I think a lot of people are looking right now and saying, okay, the Ravens are going to take this. By the way, it's funny. In the Atlanta bus terminal, okay, there's a garbage screen. There's this little pile of garbage around. And we couldn't tell if it was actually like a little garbage city that someone made for themselves, that they were going to make a bed for themselves in the middle, or whether we should have tidied it up. And like we're kind of huddled in our corner. The game was on. So like about the little bit of football that I really watched was Chargers Steelers. And I got to look up and I got to see Aaron Rodgers stumble into the end zone to take the safety.
You got to see the safety. You got to see the
And
safety.
I
was wondering if you saw the safety. I was wondering if you got to see the safety in Atlanta. Good for you.
I saw the safety. I started doing that. No one in the bus terminal is watching the football game right now because people are like all at the end of their ropes for one reason or another. My wife comes out of the bathroom at that point, and I'm going like this. She's like, "What's going on?" I think she thought I was praying to our Lord and Savior. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. There was a safety. I was trying to feel normal for a little bit. So I made the safety maneuver there. But yeah, I'm not that prepared. I'd look up the percentages whether the Ravens win it right now. But man,
yeah, well, right now, as far as remaining strength of schedules go, I wrote about it in the column on Monday morning. I'm trying to find it here, based on the remaining schedule. It's the sixth easiest in the league. Opponents have a 459 winning percentage. They still have games against the Patriots, against the Packers. They get the Steelers twice, which could determine the division. You get the Jets, you get the Browns, and you get the Bengals twice. At least one of those games could have Joe Burrow coming back. But I will say
Burrow has to come back for some reason. But go on.
I will say this. As much as I buried the Ravens back in early October, it was because they were 1-5. It was because of the injuries. Felt like they were just going to be to the point where they would pack it in. It'd be too much to overcome. It wasn't because of some sort of like structural issues with the way that team was constructed. It wasn't because I thought that somehow John Harbaugh forgot how to coach or that Harbaugh was somehow on a hot seat. There was all this talk about, is Harbaugh going to get fired? Should they turn the page? What's wrong with the Ravens? Hey, guys, the Ravens were banged up. The Ravens had Kyler Hamilton out. They lost Matabuke. They lost a handful of players, handful of key contributors on defense. They lost Lamar Jackson, for Christ's sake. What did you expect was going to happen? This wasn't some, like, coaching issue. This wasn't a philosophical issue. They were banged up. They're healthy now, and they think that they're one of the more dangerous teams that nobody's going to want to play in January.
Yeah, I saw that consistently. And like, it's like, here's a hot take. I'd be like, here's a hot take. Harbaugh's a good coach. And people are like, what do you base that on? It's like the objective reality of being a human here on planet Earth. You know, like every metric of success that a coach could have, Harbaugh has all of those things. And then it's like, after Monday night, I was like, is LaFleur on the hot seat? And it's like, LaFleur needs to be doing a better job, but do you really honestly believe that the Packers are going to be like, hey, you know what? We got Micah Parsons for you. You didn't get it done. You're out the door. Like if this team goes 10-7, you're giving me that look. Okay, here we go.
I'm giving you the look that maybe they might have him give up play calling duties. I don't know how much it's going to solve the issue.
Right.
I don't know why you keep Matt LaFleur and you don't let him call plays.
Right.
It just seems like something isn't working there. And you drafted Matthew Golden, kind of a slow burn for him, and then he gets hurt. That's out of Matt LaFleur's control. But figure it out. Your defense gave up 10 points at home, and your offense couldn't move the ball.
I mean, he's been making mistakes, but then you look at, like, you want to take somebody aside and ask them, who do you think are good coaches in the NFL? And this person would probably say, because that same person who's saying that LaFleur's on the hot seat and Harbaugh's on the hot seat is going to tell you that Bill Belichick would have been like working at freaking the diner without Tom Brady, and that Sirianni should be coaching.
He'd be driving you home. He would have driven you home from Baltimore.
He would be driving me home in the Greyhound bus. Like, who do you think is good? And they'd probably be like, okay, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, maybe Dan Campbell, Mike Vrabel right now, and whoever's on a 2-game winning streak. And like I can't think whoever right now would be on the 2-game winning streak. I guess McDonald. Oh, McDonald, he's a great coach. It's like, he's coaching well right now. But like, you think he's better than Harbaugh or Sirianni because he's won a couple of games in a row. That's how these folks think. Now, could LaFleur, if LaFleur had a owner, if I had a Jerry, I'm mad I'm firing him in a fit of pique, that's the thing that could happen. They don't have that in Green Bay. Right. They don't have that in Green Bay. So, Murphy and these other guys would sit down and very calmly say, well, we're going to give you another year to work this out. And maybe you need to bring in a coordinator. If LaFleur got fired by the Packers, he would be in New York in a tenth of a second with Clark. Right. And that's what you say.
We're going to move on here in a second, but I need to get this off my chest because of the Giants job. They just better not hire Mike McCarthy. If they hire Mike McCarthy, to me, that shows that they have learned less than nothing in New York. Because it would be the quintessential John Mara move to get a retread head coach who underachieved in the postseason, built up and then sold this bill of goods that he was going to be this forward-thinking, analytics-driven head coach when he got fired by the Packers, only to become one of the more conservative play callers in big spots with the Dallas Cowboys. I hear a lot of people linking Mike McCarthy to that job. I hear a lot of fans pining for Mike McCarthy for that job. That's a stuck in neutral, go in reverse, the whole house of cards collapses type of move if you hire Mike McCarthy. If Matt LaFleur gets fired, hey, drive to Wisconsin and bring him. Be the Lyft driver that brings him to East Rutherford. By all means, hire Matt LaFleur because that's going to jumpstart you. There are a dozen candidates who would be an upgrade over Brian Daboll and certainly over Mike McCarthy. John Mara just better not. I'm just telling people on social media are pushing back on this already. Oh, what do you have against Mike McCarthy? I have eyes and I watch football since 2012.
No one schmoozes these owners like Mike McCarthy. He schmoozes.
Right.
And Mara.
The media.
Yeah, and the media. He schmoozes the absolute crap out of us. Yeah. Not so much you and I, but like in general, and the owners, and he really keeps his name in there. You might have made that manifest, unfortunately, but we'll see what happens. The Eagles fans will be happy if they get a couple more years of McCarthy, going to the sauna at 2 in the afternoon and doing his McCarthy stuff.
I'd ask what's coming up on the 2 Deep Zone, but I'm not sure off the delirium of the Greyhound bus ride that there's anything in the pipeline. So why don't you tell people one more time where they can get the travel log and how to find it?
You find it at the 2 Deep Zone Substack at MikeTanier.substack.com. Is that right? Did I do that right?
You did. It was good.
All right. If you follow me on Blue Sky, I'm going to be linking to it a couple more times throughout the day. I'm going to be pumping this, making a big deal, spectacle out myself for this little journey. And I do have some, I'm going to be trying to get some football out, just like a couple of game previews out at the end of the week to get back on the horse a little bit. Matt, I didn't read the Daboll thing yet. I got to read it. What else is coming up?
So the Daboll story is up on Between the Hash Marks on Substack. It's mattlombardo.nfl.substack.com. Mailbag on Friday. Fire off your questions, and I will pose those questions to NFL executives, coaches, scouts, agents, former players, get their perspective on the biggest storylines you want to know more about. And then 4 Downs, Monday, the triumphant return, hopefully of walkthrough as well.
Yeah,
our Monday morning routines can be back intact. Mike, this has been a ton of fun. Glad to have you back in one piece. Was really fun to dive into your journey, your bus ride from hell. Go read the Wayward Greyhound bus at 2 Deep Zone. Go subscribe to Between the Hash Marks. Check us out on YouTube at Matt Lombardo NFL there. Mike, ton of fun. We have over 65 people in the room. Was a lot of fun with everybody on the podcast. We'll talk to you next week. And I don't have to worry about you FaceTiming. I know that I'll be getting you from 2 Deep Zone headquarters.
You'll be getting me from headquarters. Yes. Great to be back. Thank you, everyone. And good seeing you. Good seeing you too as well, Matt.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you next week.
I'm sick of it, AJ. What's it going to take?